Hi, beautiful people. Welcome to the Fort Salem Library, where we read you your fanfiction. So sit down or don't, relax or don't, and enjoy these stories in a way you have not before. We at Fort Salem Library do not own Motherland Fort Salem or any of the related characters. The Motherland Fort Salem series is created by Elliot Lawrence and owned by Freeform. This story is a work of fanfiction and is meant for entertainment only. We are not making any profit from these stories. All rights of the original Motherland Fort Salem story belong to Freeform. We also do not own Salem or any of its original characters and storylines. We did, however, get permission from the author to read their story. This story was created and written by Lisbeth_1, and you can find the link in our show notes. This story is being read to you by Celine.
Samhain. On the hallowed grounds of Fort Salem, the requested dead cannot refuse to appear, and on Samhain, the dead come back to life, if only for a little. Tally's first Samhain had been all about Sarah Alder. She had summoned Velda Estabrook in order to uncover the truth about Liberia, the truth that Sarah Alder was hiding from her, from the world. She had spent her night setting in motion the events that would lead to her facing up against General Alder at Nicta's execution, forcing the woman to try to kill her. The events that led to General Alder's own death. This Samhain is all about Sarah Alder as well, but in a much different sense. Tally pours her heart and soul into the defending of the hearth, desperate for the chance to see Alder once again, to speak her name into the flame of the candle, and be able to talk to her again. She doesn't know what she is going to say. She hasn't thought that far ahead. But M gives her the candle, and Tally finds a dark corner in an abandoned dorm. So, what if it's the biddy's old dorm? So what? And lights the candle with a shaky hand. Sarah Alder. Her voice is shaking. Her hand is shaking. Her whole body is shaking as she watches the wax drip away and the messenger slowly wiggle free and scurry away. It isn't until the messenger disappears around the corner that she realizes that she might have made a mistake, that maybe Alder won't want to talk to her. She'll have to come. She won't have a choice in the matter. But maybe she won't listen to anything that Tally has to say. Maybe she'll be angry. Maybe she'll be disappointed. Tally can't decide what would be worse. There is a noise behind her, something scraping along the linoleum floor with a high-pitched squeak, and Tally's heart jumps into her throat. She whirls around, scrambling to her feet. Even though she knew she would be seeing Sarah again tonight, nothing could have prepared her for it. She looks just like she did the last time Tally saw her alive, saw her human. Hair pulled back into a tight, flawless braid, military outfit pristine, not a wrinkle in sight, posture stiff, standing straight, hands clasped behind her back. She is staring at Tally with her icy blue eyes, an unreadable expression on her face. Tally's vision blurs slightly, with a sting of tears in her eyes, and she opens her mouth to speak, but no words come out. She doesn't know what to say, where to start. Alder tilts her head. Craven. Even the emotion in her voice is unidentifiable. Centuries of practice at hiding what she is feeling coming into play. Tally blinks away more tears at the sound of her voice. You came. Alder's gaze shifts to the candle burning behind Tally, then back to the cadet herself. It's Samhain. It's somewhere between a question and a statement, like she's almost certain but still needs confirmation. Tally just nods rapidly, not trusting her voice. Alder takes a few steps forward, boots thumping lightly against the ground. She doesn't speak, just stares, just watches Tally fidget and grow more nervous as she draws closer. She looks exactly like Tally remembers. Valda had been pale and ashen, her eyes milky with death. Sarah's skin is pale too, but her eyes are just as bright as they had been in life, and her voice doesn't contain the death rattle that Valda's had. Maybe it is because she hasn't been dead as long, Tally thinks. Maybe it's because this is how Tally knew her. Or maybe it's simply how she wants to remember her. Sarah stops just a few feet away from Tally, and Tally can feel her heartbeat pounding in her chest, feel it thrumming in her fingertips. Her whole body feels more alive than it has in months. There is so much I want to say. Tally finally manages to speak. Sarah just watches her curiously. So much I need to apologize for. Sarah blinks at that. Don't tell me you're sorry for seeking out the truth about Nicta and I. We both know that would be a lie. Tally swallows. You're right, but I'm sorry that I hurt you. She looks down at her hands, unable to hold Sarah's gaze, somehow more intense in death than it had been in life. And I'm sorry for striking you while your back was turned. Not sorry for putting me in a position where I had no choice but to kill you. Sarah's voice is harsh, and Tally flinches. The betrayal of attacking me while my back was turned was one thing. Sarah's voice is ice. But you knew you didn't stand a chance against me, so you decided to make me kill you instead, as if that would have been easier than telling the truth. But you were going to, Tally shouts, looking up again. Sarah's face is finally showing emotions. Nostrils flared in anger, blue eyes burning. Only because you left me no choice, Sarah shouts back, something akin to desperation leaking into her voice, staining the anger there. Do you even know why I turned my back to you, Craven? She takes a step closer. I was going to tell them. Her words are a hiss through clenched teeth. I was going to tell them everything. Tally's stomach drops. No, you. I told you that I didn't want to hurt you. Another step closer. I just hadn't realized you would be so willing to hurt me instead. Tears spring forth in Tally's eyes at that, and she can't stop them from sliding down her face. I didn't know what else to do, she says quietly. Her words feel weak, meaningless. You didn't think. Sarah's voice is softer now, almost a sigh. No, Tally shakes her head, but unfortunately this past year that's all I've been able to do. She looks back up at Sarah, the older woman still watching her, her face guarded again. And what is it that you have thought about this past year? Sarah sounds almost indifferent, but her head tilts again, giving away the curiosity that she felt. Tally just stares into those blue eyes for a moment. She's thankful they don't have that milky look to them, that whiteness of death that Valda's held. You. How much I've missed you. How empty Fort Salem feels without you. She takes a shaky breath, clenching her hands at her sides. Sarah is silent, watching her. The first time that I saw you up on that stage, it was like time stood still. And then you spoke, and I knew I had found my place here in this witch's place, with you. Tally feels a lump appear in her throat. Sees the way Sarah's two blue eyes widen fractionally, but she keeps talking, And then you died, and I don't know how I'm supposed to be here in this place without you. There is power in letting go, Tally. Sarah's voice is soft, but her words make Tally recoil. But I don't want to let you go. Tally's voice is shrill, and she reaches out for Sarah before she even realizes what she is doing. Valda had physically touched her, pushed her into a wall and held her there. But Tally is still surprised when her hands find purchase on Sarah's solid form. Her hands curl into the sleeves of Sarah's jacket, drawing her a touch closer, and Sarah allows herself to be moved forward. But she makes no move to reach for Tally in return. Tally. Her voice is too soft, a gentle sigh and a closing of eyes. Tally chokes back a sob. She would never admit this to a Sarah who was still alive, a Sarah that she would have to see after tonight, a Sarah whose rejection she would have to deal with on a daily basis. But this Sarah is only here for one night, a few more minutes at best, and Tally doesn't find herself caring about what will happen after the words have been spoken. I loved you, you know? Tally chokes out around the sob that was still stuck somewhere in her throat, watching the way that Sarah's two bright eyes fly back open. Her grip on Sarah's arms tightens. Love you, she corrects the tense, but not enough to let the matter of Liberia and Nyctus stay hidden. Sarah's tone isn't cruel, but the words still sting. I loved you more than anything, Tally says fiercely, her skin prickling, but I had to do what I thought was right. Another soft sigh leaves Sarah's mouth, and her hand is cold when she brings it up to run it over Tally's cheek. Tally shudders, eyes closing at the contact, and they remain like that for a while. Sarah's cold palm against Tally's warm cheek. I know. There's a pause before she speaks again. That's where I loved you too. Tally's eyes fly open, and she's tensing in surprise, but Sarah is already putting her free hand on her hip, making sure she doesn't pull away or bolt. It's why I love you, Sarah says, her words causing a shudder to run down Tally's spine. Tally loses control of the sob that she was holding back in her throat, and it forces its way out, her chest heaving. Sarah pulls her close, cold hand leaving her cheek to run through Tally's hair, and Tally grips at both of Sarah's shoulders. Her heart is pounding against Sarah's chest, quickly enough for two people, and she draws in a shaky, ragged breath. Will you ever forgive me? Sarah's arms seem to tighten around her. Oh, my sweet girl, I already have. Tally is fully crying now against Sarah's chest, but she still manages to rasp out. How am I supposed to let you go now? Sarah's hand that is running through her hair stills. Tally. Tally pulls back to look at Sarah. The candle is gonna burn out any minute. How am I supposed to go on with my life again after you're gone? The tears are still streaming down her face. Sarah shifts them both, until they're both facing the candle. The flame almost burned down to the wick, the candle a puddle of wax on the floor. It's only moments until it burns out now. Just watch. Her voice is soft again, hand continuing to run through Tally's long hair. Tally clings to Sarah, watching the flame slowly eat away at the wick, watching the wax from the candle drip onto the floor. The tiny flame is an orange blur behind the tears that cloud her eyes, but she can't tear her eyes away as she holds on to Sarah. She won't let Sarah being taken from her take her by surprise again. She needs to know the moment it's going to happen. Tally's heart clenches painfully as the wick shortens, and the candle dies out. The sob that leaves Tally's chest echoes in the quiet dark of the former biddy dorm. She feels dizzy, taking a step backwards, and the room spins slightly as she looks away from the burned-out candle, hands curling around Sarah, who is still standing there, those blue eyes looking down at her. "What?" Tally gasps. She squeezes Sarah's arms again, just to make sure it's really her, that she's still really there. "How are you? I don't understand." Her head whips back to the candle, definitely burned out, and then back to Sarah. "How is this possible?" She feels dizzy, like she might faint, and she is certain that she would if it weren't for Sarah holding her upright. Sarah squeezes her gently back, hand sliding through her hair and down her back to rest on her waist. "She let me decide if I wanted to stay," she whispers. Tally's heart is thundering in her chest against Sarah's, and she suddenly realizes that it wasn't just her too quickly beating heart that she had felt before, but Sarah's as well. "The mycelium?" Sarah nods. "I never had a good enough reason to come back before." Her hand comes up to stroke Tally's cheek again, wiping away the tears that Tally hadn't even known were there. "And now?" Tally can't help the crack in her voice as she speaks, pressing her body closer to Sarah's, hoping. Sarah's hand curls around the small of Tally's back, pressing them fully against one another, and she takes a deep breath, resting her forehead against Tally's. "How am I supposed to let you go now?" she whispers. On the hallowed grounds of Fort Salem, the requested dead cannot refuse to appear, and on Samhain, the dead come back to life.
Please find the fanfiction you just listened to on Archive of Our Own, and leave the author some love. Without them, this wouldn't be possible, and we want to thank them from the bottoms of our hearts for creating these amazing stories and keeping the show alive.